I prefer movies that are more
You mean uncomfortable
emotional.
about the subject matter? I mean, there's a lot of passion. You really...
Right. Yeah, I had to go for it.
There was a cover of Time magazine with 14-year-old Diane Lane. A billionaire with a picture-perfect face, she was just 18 years old. Diane ultimately acknowledged to having relationships with co-stars Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins, a confession that had been long assumed but never proven, at the age of 59. She had been sought by Hollywood as a young star, but as she progressed in her career, she grew more reclusive. Diane Lane has taken on a plethora of emotionally challenging roles, been through 2 failed marriages, been the subject of a contentious arrest, and endured innumerable unanswered rumors, all while transitioning from a youthful icon in A Little Romance to the hauntingly intense scene in Unfaithful that audiences always thought involved actual sex. Who is Diane Lane, though, beneath those sad eyes? You should not miss this under-recounted tale, which has never been told in its entirety. Diane Lane came into this world in the Big Apple on January 22, 1965. Her mom, Colleen Lee Farrington, sometimes called Colleen Price, was a model and nightclub singer who was included in Playboy's Miss October 1957 issue. Her dad, Burton Eugene Lane, was a Manhattan acting instructor, cab driver, and professor of humanities at City College of New York. He also co-ran a theater workshop with John Cassavetes. Her parents divorced when Diane was just 13 days old. Later on, Diane's mother filed for divorce and traveled to Mexico. She stayed with Diane until she was 6 years old, after which she gave her to Diane's father, who had gone to Georgia. From that point on, Diane spent several years in New York City with her father, cycling between residential hotels and riding shotgun in his cab. Diane had an unusual background, complete with unorthodox upbringing, sporadic schooling, and travels across Manhattan in an ancient cab. She spent her formative years engrossed in the bohemian lifestyle and little stages of the arts rather than a stable household. She had to grow up fast and learn to fend for herself throughout that period. Diane had announced her independence from her father by the time she was 15 years old. Christopher Atkins, who was her co-star and friend from the TV show A Little Romance, accompanied her on a week-long flight to Los Angeles. She subsequently characterized the trip as the careless behavior of a young lady who had too much freedom. She finished high school via correspondence after moving in with a friend's family in New York, where she was responsible for her own rent. But in 1981, her mother made an unexpected return and kidnapped her, bringing her back to Georgia. After Diane and her father filed a lawsuit, she was finally granted permission to return to New York 6 weeks later. For 3 years following that incident, Diane and her mother had no communication until they made up. Visiting the town of Baugh, sometimes with her Pentecostal grandmother during her time in Georgia, taught Diane to live simply, eating salted meat and butter, repairing lawnmowers, and being unburdened. In the fast-paced and intense Hollywood industry, it helped her maintain composure and a sense of stability. Diane Lane is a strong-willed, media-averse, role-conscious lady who learned to differentiate between her actual life and her acting parts as a result of her parents' divorce, her unstable living arrangements, her mother's separation from her, and the pressure to mature quickly. Diane Lane made her cinematic debut in 1979, co-starring with the late Laurence Olivier in the film A Little Romance when she was just 13 years old. The picture was more than a stepping stone. It was a bombshell that propelled Diane Lane to sudden stardom on a national scale. Her portrayal on TV was that of an actress trapped in adolescence. Her subtle emotions, expressive eyes, and depth of feeling belied her tender years. With the title Hollywood's Whiz Kids adorning the cover of Time magazine's August 13, 1979 issue, she shot to fame less than a year later, being hailed as a breath of new air in an era of cinema that lacked authenticity and instinct. Viewers were captivated by the uncommon sincerity and innocence that this girl exhibited on screen, rather than by her flawlessness. Everyone from kids to adults could feel Diane Lane's genuine emotions, since she didn't act like she was reciting words. Diane had accomplished what many performers strive for their whole careers, earning the audience's trust at the tender age of 14. Despite the inevitable highs and lows, Hollywood's most precious commodities, patience and respect, would forever be bestowed upon her because of that magnificent start. Following this, Diane kept appearing in a series of big-budget films including Six Pack and Touched by Love, before reaching her zenith with critically acclaimed pictures like Rumblefish, The Outsiders, Streets of Fire, and The Cotton Club. Francis Ford Coppola, who had tremendous faith in her as a young actor, gave her 3 roles in a row, which is a huge compliment. Diane Lane was a billionaire by the time she was 18 years old, owing to her high wages, busy film schedule, and ubiquitous presence in Hollywood. As her career took off, though, so did the scrutiny. She was rumored to be romantically involved with co-stars Matt Dillon, Michael Pear, and Richard Gere on many occasions when she was still a teenager, all due to their on-screen chemistry. In order to keep her personal life private, Diane frequently had to openly refute these claims or opt to remain silent. She expressed her frustration with being typecast and the lack of opportunities to showcase her emotional range, saying, "Just because I play someone's lover in a film doesn't mean I love them in real life." She went on to say that many people fail to grasp this point. Diane had to separate herself from the media and pick her scripts more carefully as audiences started to confuse her with the roles she played. Jumping headfirst into stardom was an incredible but perilous way for Diane Lane to break into Hollywood. She had to learn early on that fame isn't everything, that being a fantastic actress isn't enough, and that you also need to know how to survive in a world that wants to write your story for you. Diane Lane broke out of her acting slump and began to assert herself as a fully realized artist after years of playing the stereotypical on-screen girlfriend and navigating the murky line between character and truth. She played the role of Connie Sumner, a wife who cheats not due to infidelity, but rather a profound feeling of isolation and detachment in an apparently ideal existence, in Adrian Lyne's 2002 film Unfaithful. For Diane, it was a first to play a character with so many shades of complexity and inner turmoil. No words, no shaking hands, confused gaze, and weak breaths as Connie waits on a train after her first encounter became an iconic scene in cinema. Even after all these time has passed, people often cite it as a model of effective silent action. Not many people are aware that this sequence wasn't originally penned. We had wrapped the shot and were bringing the train back to the station when Adrian Lyne said, "Just shoot something." I didn't ask anything. I just closed my eyes and started, Diane recounted in an interview with the Jess Cagle Show. She was nominated for an Oscar and won the Hollywood Film Awards for her performance as Connie. On Late Night with Conan O'Brien, she laughed and said, "There's no sex scene on the train, but everyone thinks there is. That's the power of emotion in the lens." The scene was filmed in one take. We never did it again. Moreover, it recast her in the public mind as an actress who could hold her own in a picture simply by staring and remaining silent, rather than just a young girlfriend or someone defined by her male co-star. There was no let-up in Diane Lane's pace after Unfaithful. She made a triumphant return to the silver screen with Under the Tuscan Sun, 2003. A completely different picture that catapulted her career to new heights only a year after her last appearance. Frances, a middle-aged lady who has just gone through a divorce, leaves her old life behind in the United States to purchase a dilapidated property in Tuscany and begin over in the movie which she portrayed. She wasn't born powerful. The protagonist had to work her way up from a lowly position. Frances was on a quest for self-discovery, not love. The part was given a dose of real-life experience by Diane Lane. Filming in Tuscany seemed like a dream vacation, but after 5 weeks it became overwhelming, she said during an interview with Conan O'Brien on Late Night. "I wanted to simply eat all the spaghetti, drink all the olive oil, and miss my baby so much that I wanted to just go home." This portrayal not only garnered her a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy, but it also created a new icon for middle-aged women in Hollywood, portraying Frances as a strong, unassuming lady rising from tragedy. I sobbed because I didn't want to be in paradise longer. Authentic, imperfect, and sluggish, Diane Lane depicted rebirth without highlighting vulnerability or dramatizing sorrow. By the time she released Under the Tuscan Sun, Diane had matured beyond her youthful stardom and had become an inspiration to a whole generation of women who were also trying to find themselves after experiencing loss. Following Unfaithful and Under the Tuscan Sun, Diane Lane did not rehash her previous work, but instead delved into the world of flawed, quiet women who are often ignored by history, yet whose minds were full of latent revolt. She portrayed a wife who was slipping away from the marriage she had previously chosen in A Walk on the Moon, 1999, which took place during a summer vacation when her husband was gone for business. Subtly betraying him is Diane's character, not because the lover is charming, but because she has lost sight of herself in the subdued role of a faithful wife. Viewed through the perspective of a woman who is aware of her wrongdoing but unable to refrain, the film spares viewers from dramatic confrontations. Not only did Diane receive an Independent Spirit Award nomination for the part, but it also signaled a new direction for her acting career, focusing on feeling rather than speech. Diane played the role of Penny Chenery in Secretariat, 2010, a middle-aged housewife who reluctantly takes over her father's horse farm in the male-dominated world of professional horse racing. In this industry, women are expected to keep quiet and males control everything. Penny does more than just make it through. She guides Secretariat to become an American racing legend. Following this, in 2015's Trumbo, Diane quietly declared, "I don't play the lover anymore. I play the leader." In this role, she broke age-based stereotypes and played Cleo Fincher, the wife of screenwriter Dalton Trumbo during the Hollywood blacklist era, moving away from the center of the screen. Despite the role's lack of sentimentality, Cleo exemplified an unsung heroine, a woman who bore the brunt of her husband's decisions without murmuring a word or running away. No oratory was required for Diane to impart that. The gravity of her character was communicated just by her presence. Nights in Rodanthe, 2008, brought Diane back into the romance genre, reconnecting with Richard Gere after more than 20 years, in addition to her work depicting silent, powerful women. They weren't two young, passionate lovers this time. They were two damaged adults looking for love again. The audience bought into Diane and Gere's performance as if they had actually loved one another in the past. Genuine chemistry like that doesn't require proof. It manifests in the lengthy silences shared by two broken spirits seeking to mend their relationship. Diane Lane, who was never one to engage in red carpet drama or make contentious remarks, had a quiet and restrained public persona for a long time. Many saw her as an exemplary artist, one who dedicated herself fully to her work while avoiding the limelight. Unexpectedly, Diane broke her long-suppressed quiet in 2005 during an interview with Esquire magazine, shocking many with her confession. "I had affairs with both Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins." She spoke it honestly, as if releasing a long-borne burden without deflection or guilt. In addition to shocking the media, her confession revived romance rumors that had been circulating about her since the 1980s. Speculations regarding Richard Gere, Michael Pear, and Matt Dillon, which were previously dismissed, now held more weight. It wasn't the names Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins that made this confession resound. It was the contradiction it exposed. A lady who frequently played betrayed individuals had crossed that line in real life. Diane Lane became a more nuanced character as a result of this contradiction, shifting from being a symbol of honest, genuine emotion to one who juggles several roles and responsibilities, roles and realities, victim and transgressor. Although Diane's candor disappointed some of her admirers, it proved to others that she wasn't pretending. Rather, she was experiencing life to the fullest, even when it was unflattering. Even as a young woman, Diane Lane was used to having the public nosy about her private life. However, of all her relationships, the one that lasted the longest and made her smile the most whenever she brought him up, was Christopher Lambert. In 1984, while Diane was promoting a picture in Paris, they met. Diane was a rising Hollywood star, and he was a European superstar. The beginning of a romance that spans continents was swift. In 1988, 4 years after that, they tied the knot. Perhaps one reason Diane Lane's marriage is seen as a rare and tranquil period in her sometimes tumultuous life is that it was not overly publicized or influenced by tabloids. The couple had a daughter, Eleanor Jasmine Lambert, in 1993. Diane would later describe her as the guiding light in every life decision she made. However, the challenges of long-distance, hectic schedules, and cultural clashes were obstacles that Diane and Lambert, like many couples in the entertainment industry, had to overcome. There was no controversy or animosity surrounding their 1994 divorce, which followed a 6-year marriage. Both moved on with their lives and formed new relationships after the divorce. While Christopher Lambert wed actress Jamie Gertz in 1999, albeit their marriage barely lasted a year, Diane Lane wed actor Josh Brolin in 2004. She was in a relationship with actress Sophie Marceau from 2007 till 2014. Importantly, Diane never once trash-talked Lambert, even though they were unable to stay married. She often stressed, "We truly loved each other, but sometimes love alone isn't enough." It's commendable that they kept up a real relationship and co-parented their kid like real colleagues, even though they were separated. Some marriages, like Diane and Lambert's, end in acceptance and progress rather than resentment, and that's the way Diane Lane chooses to live her life, quietly, with responsibility, and never blaming. After over a decade of being emotionally distant from Christopher Lambert, Diane finally opened up to someone complex. Josh Brolin, an actor with a reputation for rugged good looks and a turbulent private life, and they were married. They tied the knot on August 15, 2004, after becoming engaged in July 2003. Their similarities, they were both mature, had been through heartache, and breathed as if it were oxygen, made them look like the perfect marriage. A little over 4 months following the nuptials, however, the couple entered their first dark period. Diane Lane contacted the authorities following a heated altercation with Brolin at their residence on December 20, 2004. The arrest of Josh Brolin on a minor charge of domestic assault caused a media frenzy. Their spokesman then downplayed the event, and Diane herself chose not to file charges. There was no public condemnation and no subsequent legal action. The couple's image, however, had changed. There were no accusations or defenses offered by Lane to the press since she refrained from speaking to the media. After that, Diane Lane seemed to withdraw even farther within herself, spending less time at public events and more time being a mother and the steadying presence in her home. She remained mute. After nearly 10 years of marriage, Diane made the decision to end the union. Her divorce from Brolin was completed on November 27, 2013, after she filed for it in February of that year. Just as Diane had always dealt with pain, quietly but determinedly, neither party publicly criticized the other. There were no court fights and no post-divorce media campaigns. Diane Lane and Josh Brolin carried on with their own lives and professions following their divorce. In addition to his continued acting career, Brolin announced in 2013 that he has been clean since a series of episodes with alcohol. Unlike her previous marriage, which ended amicably, her second marriage showed subtle signs of emotional strain and boundaries. Diane Lane made a powerful statement about self-respect and quiet courage by choosing to remain silent and walk away even though she never claimed to be a victim. From the tortured Connie in Unfaithful to the reborn Frances in Under the Tuscan Sun, or Martha Kent, the embodiment of quiet sacrifice, Diana Lane frequently plays strong, complex women on cinema. These characters struggle with their emotions and contain deep meaning. However, she doesn't carry those feelings with her after the cameras stop recording. Things change when you meet Diane Lane in person. She said, "I'm only good at playing someone who can cook in movies. In real life, I've actually bought takeout and pretended I made it myself." This caused her to break into laughing on a chat program that questioned about her culinary abilities. Just another one of those charming fibs. Diane is very relatable since she doesn't pretend to be flawless but instead freely confesses when she's wrong. She is an actress who has been nominated for an Oscar, has graced the cover of Time magazine, and has also been known to clumsily use a toaster and confuse a duck's egg for a chicken's. "I am completely enamored with thigh-high boots," she said in an interview with Playboy from 1995, exhibiting an unusual and eccentric inclination. "All kind of high heels are in my collection." Diane Lane, when she's not acting, is sultry, hilarious, and instinctive. She also enjoys collecting antique furniture, going on walks, doing yoga, riding horses, and spending as much time as she can with her daughter, Eleanor Jasmine Lambert. She spends her life without drama or following fashion fads. Her style is unassuming but distinctive. Maybe that's why Diane Lane is so authentic. In real life as well as on television, she doesn't put on a show. She just is. Sometimes strange, occasionally quirky, but never phony. Diane Lane doesn't want to be like other Hollywood actresses who are afraid to let their guard down in front of the cameras. Instead of speaking up when she feels misunderstood or crying in public, she remains mute, as if her life's events are meant to be comprehended just by herself. Diane views that type of quiet as a strength, not a sign of weakness, since she knows there is no need to speak up when she feels strongly about an issue. Despite enduring 2 unsuccessful marriages, a contentious arrest, and a never-ending stream of love rumors throughout her career, she continues to guard an untouchable private space, free from the influence of the public and her emotions. Diane Lane, in contrast to other celebrities, decided to leave her imprint in quiet. She didn't engage in scandals, dramatic box office campaigns, or an overly active media presence. Instead, she just stepped in front of the camera, spoke through her eyes, and transformed her anguish into art. It is indisputable that Diane Lane had remarkable success from her earliest days. In 2005, VH1 placed her at number 79 on their list of the 100 greatest kid stars. Not because she was trying to prove anything, but because Diane became an embodiment of strength, wisdom, and an unforgettable charm. As she got older, she was also ranked number 7 on the list of the most attractive stars over 40 that year. Diane Lane's versatility as an actress is the main reason why her fans like her. From Martha Kent in the DC universe to Frances in Under the Tuscan Sun and Connie in Unfaithful, every woman has her own story, one that is full of brightness, contrasts, and scars. Diane does not paint her characters. Rather, she reveals their fears and vulnerabilities to the viewer in a way that is both realistic and approachable. While it's true that few actresses continue to thrive after the age of 40, Diane Lane stands out. She has not only endured but has also progressed. She doesn't try to steal the show, reposition herself as a feminist symbol, or make bold proclamations. Her most powerful voice is her stillness, which is unclaimed in the name of anything and not confined to any trend. Not many people are aware that Diane Lane is also involved in community service. She is silent, but never apathetic, unnoticed, but never inactive. She silently joins with Mercy International to help worldwide poverty relief projects without making big statements or public contribution drives. The confidence of viewers is a better indicator of Diane Lane's legacy than monetary awards. Whenever she shows up, it's obvious. When she sobs, it hurts. When she stays quiet, it helps us comprehend. And when she leaves, it makes us miss her. And that's a quality that not many people working in show business keep. She has been a living embodiment of authenticity in her work and life for 40 years. Diane Lane has decided to lead a life that is less hectic, more introspective, and less centered by tabloid romances and heavyweight film roles. She still performs, just as she has weathered every storm over the last 4 decades, not to keep her celebrity, but because it's her lifeline. In House of Cards, 2018, Diane made a significant impression as a politician with a smart mind, and in Feud Capote vs. The Swans, 2024, she played Slim Keith, a symbol of New York's high society. Diane Lane isn't only surviving in Hollywood at over 60 years old. She is reinventing the role of a mature, multi-layered, and courageous actor with her portrayal, which won her an Emmy nomination. Quite a few modest homes, complete absence of participants, suppress all forms of distracted social media. Diane chooses a simple life. She does yoga first thing in the morning, rides horses on weekends, walks whenever she can, reads, gardens, collects antique furniture, and likes reading, flower arranging, and antique furniture. In an interview, Diane stated that nothing is more important to her than maintaining a healthy body and mind on a daily basis, regardless of how much attention she receives. She prioritizes spending time with her daughter, Eleanor Jasmine Lambert, whom she has from a previous marriage to Christopher Lambert, who was born in 1993. Vanity Fair, Numero, and other New York fashion ads have featured Eleanor, who is now a freelance writer and model. Despite not following in her mother's performing footsteps, she maintains the spirit of an independent artist. She is Diane's soulmate, as Diane once said. She's the reason I don't lose myself in a world full of noise. Diane Lane has no interest in denying her age now that she's 60. Aging is a privilege. Every wrinkle is a memory. In a world where everyone is so focused on looking young and flawless, that remark reads like a manifesto. Ditch the plastic surgery and ideal chasing. Instead, Diane Lane welcomes wrinkles and aging as natural parts of life. From the 13-year-old girl on the cover of Time magazine to the 60-year-old woman serenely sitting on an Emmy-nominated set, Diane Lane has come a long way in 4 decades. Her beauty, multifaceted personality, and wealth of experience are enough to make her a legend, and she doesn't even need to proclaim it. So, what's your take on this? Do you think Diane Lane is a brilliant yet underappreciated actor, or merely a teen idol whose career eventually faded? What about her character resonates with you, and which of her parts did you find most memorable? Can you get the guts to age as she has? Tell us what's going through your head by posting a comment below. We have more tales to share about stars that do more than simply shine. They also light the path for others. If you enjoyed this inspiring picture and would want to see more, hit that like button and subscribe. Press the play button to continue experiencing these amazing adventures.